Hello, this is Randy, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. I wanted to tell you a little bit about when I was growing up. My dad and mom were the only ones from their family that moved to Arizona. We moved down here to Arizona due to my mom's health. She had cancer, so we ended up in Tucson. The only reason we ended up in Tucson instead of Tempe was that the University of Arizona offered my dad $1,000 more a year to teach. I always tell people that the reason I'm from Tucson and went to the U of A is because ASU cheapened out. There you go. My dad was an excellent teacher. He was also a very introverted man. He would tell you that he was socially backward. I don't think he was socially backward. I just think he was shy. And my mother brought him out and made him very goal oriented. My dad, once he decided he really liked teaching accounting, my mother insisted he continue getting degrees. He was very careful about where he went to school and which schools he taught at. But getting back to the story of our lives, once my dad moved away, he really missed his brothers, his sisters, his brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law, my aunts and uncles. So we used to go back up to Utah every year. We would always stop halfway Lake Powell. I remember as a teenager just kind of throwing down the gauntlet and saying, "Dad, this is ridiculous. We have been to Lake Powell every year and never even put the boat in the water. We'd always tow a boat behind our truck and camper." So one year he decided we'd actually go boating on Lake Powell. It was a great time. We even caught some fish. We went back down there and met my uncle and aunt and cousins another time. But most of the time it was Dad was in a hurry. The reason we stopped at Lake Powell is he could go in there and park for a relatively little fee. It wasn't very expensive to stay there. It was safe. And we'd get up in the morning and drive on to Utah, where from south of Manti to the top of the state, we would see family for the next few weeks. But one thing he always loved to do was to go fishing with his brothers. We would meet sometimes at Fish Lake. Fish Lake's above Richfield. It's gorgeous. If you've never been there, it's worth the drive. We would go and fish with the brothers, my uncles, and he just delighted. My dad loved his brothers and sisters. We had to see every one of them when we were up there. We'd go see my sister, who lived in Hiram, and some other relatives. That was a good part of what my dad did. Once my mother died, we kind of lost track of her side of the family. My dad remarried. That was probably part of the reason that we lost track of her side of the family. But I had some amazing uncles and aunts on that side as well. I know they loved me. I'm sorry we lost track of each other. You guys were awesome to us. But it was traveling up and seeing my dad and how much he loved his brothers. I wish I was as close physically to my brothers as my dad was, because I've got a brother that lives in Washington, D.C., another one that lives in the Kansas City area, and a sister that lives in Tucson. My brother-in-law, because his wife has passed away, my sister, lives up in Hiram still. And I've been able to see probably my sister and brother-in-law in Hiram more often than everybody else combined, because I used to work up in Utah. I would plan a trip up to northern Utah, southern Idaho, and arrange to stop by and see them. But my whole point in this is to tell you family is dang important. Please go out of your way. Stay in touch with your family and let them know that you love them and that you care about them. There's a saying that we always say is blood is thicker than water. It's true. But the reason for that is because we share so many experiences. We have so many things in common. I've seen kids. I remember kids I grew up with fighting like cats and dogs, and you'd never know it by looking at them now. At the same time, I see kids that used to fight like cats and dogs and still fight like cats and dogs. I think it all depends on what is important to you. I'm grateful that the example I was given was that it was important to get together and appreciate your family. Dad had brothers and brothers-in-laws that were characters. Had a brother-in-law, or his brother-in-law, my uncle. I remember one time we were at, I think it was Flaming Gorge, and he had a new camera, and he managed to get a picture of everybody coming out of the bathroom. Now, that may sound funny, but this bathroom was so small that you were always coming out doing your pants up, because it was so small you couldn't even change your mind in there, let alone get your pants up and fully buttoned. He got a picture of everybody, and he just thought it was hilarious. I guess Now that we look back on it, it was hilarious. But at the time, it was a little frustrating because what are you doing? Leave us alone. I remember a beloved aunt that had this little pie maker. You'd butter both sides of bread, and then you'd put the bread in it, and then you'd put a scoopful of pie filling, and you'd close it. And then you'd hold it over the fire in the campfire, and you'd turn it one way or another, and it would toast the bread, turn it into like an Uncrustable, except much better because of all the butter and the fresh pie filling, just little things like that. I remember camping with my uncles and aunts and popping popcorn over the fire. I remember one aunt showed us how to make toast over the fire without the pie maker. Lots of amazing memories. And I'm grateful for those times. I hope my children are as close to their aunts and uncles as I feel to mine. I'm grateful for that relationship. I know that my children's aunts and uncles love them, have gone out of their way to be part of their lives. And I hope my children appreciate that sacrifice. So with that, let me thank you again for joining me one more time for Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. Have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. And if you can, send a comment. Appreciate those. Bye now.